Hello and welcome to Steelmade. My name is Annie. In this video, I am going to show you how to make the best tasting steak ever, along with a few tips and tricks that you can add in if you want to. So first you want to choose a steak, whatever you like to eat. We prefer something a little thicker, so we went with a thicker steak. They get much thicker than this, and this method for cooking is great for the really thick steaks. However, I have learned that it works with every type of steak, and it's my go-to method every time. What you first want to do is get yourself some kind of drying rack. This is what I have. Of course, you can use just like a cooling sheet, a cookie sheet, or something like that, that you can put anything on to allow some air to get to all sides of the steak. And then you're going to liberally salt all sides of the steak. This step is not optional. If you want your steak to taste really good, make sure you're salting equally and evenly throughout all sides, including the sides here. You can overdo it, but really at this stage, you can put quite a bit of salt on there and it'll be fine. So what's gonna happen is after I do this, I'm gonna take this steak, I'm going to leave it uncovered on this drying rack, and I'm gonna put it in the fridge. That's an optional step, but if you have time, put it in the fridge from anywhere between 6 to 24 hours. You can go longer than that. However, I have found it best to just go ahead and put it in the evening and salt it into the fridge. And then the next day at dinner time, I take it out to bring it to room temperature. What that is going to do is all this salt is going to absorb into the meat, and then it's going to make the inside of the meat taste so great and pull out all the juices to the top or outer layer of the steak. That way, when you are ready to caramelize your steak or sear it, it'll get a nice even caramelization, and it'll also intensify the flavors of the steak and make it just taste really great with each bite. Okay, so we already had a steak that had been in the fridge overnight. This is that steak, and I'm going to bring it out and then prep everything else for the process. Now, what we will be doing is a reverse sear. Some of you may have seen that. It is absolutely fantastic. It's super easy to do, but it makes sure that your steak is evenly cooked to the rarity that you choose or doneness that you choose. And then you get a nice even sear on it on the flat top afterward, and it tastes great. But while it's coming up to room temperature, I'm going to apply some bull honky. This is just a great seasoning for any kind of beef. It's by Lamalex. I'm going to apply it on there. And yes, there is some salt in bull honky, but honestly, all the salt that you put on there has already gone into the meat, so it's not going to affect what's on the outer layer. This is just going to season our searing sides. All right, so that's done. I'm gonna let it sit over there. And of course you can do multiple steaks if you want, but this is where you wanna start if you're just gonna do one. The next step is I will be using the oven for this. That is why it's a reverse sear. So you want to preheat your oven to 250 degrees. I also like to put inside of my oven a pizza steel. The reason for that is because it will evenly heat the oven and keep it heated at a low temperature and make sure that everything that is baking in there or cooking in there cooks evenly, even when the door is open. So just a little tip, if you're cooking in your oven or baking in your oven, you should go ahead and put the pizza steel on the bottom level underneath, and then anything that you will be baking is going to go on the middle shelf. That's where we will be placing the steak that we're going to reverse sear. You're going to need a meat thermometer or probe that you can insert into the meat, but you can set the thermometer outside and monitor the meat temperature while it is cooking in the oven. You want to bring your meat up to about 110 to 120 degrees, depending upon the doneness that you prefer. I like to stay at around 110 so that when I bring it out and I sear the meat, it'll bring it up to that medium rare temperature that I like. My oven has been preheated. It is time to put the steak in. I'm going to put it directly in there on this rack. There's no reason to remove it. I also want it on the drying rack like that so that the heat gets to all sides and not one side is left unexposed. So this method works really well. While that is heating up, I'm going to preheat the flat top to get ready to sear the steak. Allow your flat top to preheat slowly. You don't want it to get up there really, really fast because you can cause warping. So make sure you give it or allow some time for it to preheat properly. So I'm going to put this in and then go ahead and start this. This steak at this thickness should only need about 15 minutes, maybe 20. but really I think it's gonna be good at about 15 minutes and it'll come to temperature. We'll take it out and immediately sear it, and I'll show you how that works. Okay, so I just took out the steak from the oven and it is now time to do the searing part. The steak doesn't look awesome right now, but that's just because it's just cooked internally and we haven't put the caramelized sear on there. First thing you need to do is hopefully your flat top is already preheated, and then you need to apply some sort of oil. I am definitely using the tallow that Steelmade offers. It is so full of flavor and so great. So I'm gonna place some tallow on there. If your flat top is super hot, you may wanna cool it down before you put any oil on there, just to avoid any splattering. But go ahead and put some oil on there. Okay, my flat top is pretty hot. Now you want it to be around 450 to 500 degrees. 500 would be better because we're gonna do a fast sear on this. It's not going to be sitting there for minutes. It's literally gonna sit there for probably 90 seconds, which is typically what I end up doing, but if you need a little bit longer, go ahead. So the first thing I'm going to do is take this steak off of the pan, and I'm going to lay it away from me onto that oil and get it searing. Okay, this steak has been on there for literally 90 seconds, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over. And look how great that caramelization is. That's what we want. And that all comes from salting it ahead of time and then putting it in the oven afterward. But salting it ahead of time and allowing it to be in the refrigerator for a little while and dry age to an extent, it brings all those juices to the top. And then when you actually do sear it, you have a nice, even, perfect, beautiful sear. So I'm gonna do 90 seconds on this other side, and then I think it should be done and we'll cut into it. If you have a much thicker steak than what this is, you may want to pick the steak up and then actually do the sides of the steak. There are steaks like tomahawk steaks and everything to brown the sides of it, but it's not absolutely necessary. It just looks a little better, and then it'll give a little flavor to the sides as well. And oftentimes, if I didn't have enough oil, I'll just put the fat side down like this and let some of the oil cook off of the actual steak from the fats, and then use that to finish my caramelization. This steak is finished, so I'm going to take it off and set it on the cooling rack and let it cool for just a minute. Now, when you are doing a reverse sear, it's not absolutely necessary to let the steak rest. You could just serve it as is because you've already cooked the internal temperature that you want. There's not gonna be any kind of contraction of the meat or anything like that. So you can go ahead and cut if you want, but I still like for the texture to allow it to sit for just a little bit, plus it's really hot to handle, but we'll cut into it in just a second. There you have it. It's super easy to make a reverse seared steak. I actually find it easier than making a steak just on the griddle or just on the grill because I don't have to check on it as much. I just put it in the oven with the thermometer and with the I just put it in the oven with the thermometer and the pizza steel, and I know that it's going to cook to the temperature that I want, and then I bring it out for a really quick sear, and then it's done and it's ready to go, and it tastes fantastic. So I really hope you give it a try. The flat top, of course, seared it to a perfect caramelization on both sides, which is awesome. And you can load this thing up with steaks. I only did one today to keep it simple, but even tonight, am going to do probably about 6 steaks all at once, and they'll be done in a matter of minutes after coming out of the oven. So it's a huge benefit to have a nice big surface. Using the tallow was terrific. If you have any questions about any of the products that I used from Steelmade today, please contact us at info@steelmadeusa.com or visit our website, steelmadeusa.com, and chat with one of our support agents. Thank you and have a great day.